Hi guys, thank you so much for coming to, I'm just leaning down really awkwardly. Thank you so much for coming to the panel today. I'm gonna introduce the one and only Faye Marsay. Faye Marsay. Beautiful, wonderful British actress that she is. She is our moderator for today. I may have made her do it, but she'd never tell you that. Okay, great.
Well, yeah, Heidi is my girlfriend and has made me do this today, so that's awkward. But here we go. So I'm Faye. And this is all written down by Heidi, so none of my personality will come across at all today. So this panel today is called The Power in Sharing Vulnerable Stories. And we're going to start with introducing everybody on the panel, and then they can tell us all their secrets and everything. So please introduce.
Hi guys, I'm Heidi. My girlfriend's really short, so I'm going to make this taller. I'm a co-creator of Avocado Toast, the series, and I'm from Toronto.
Yeah,
my name is Perrie. I am also the other co-creator of Avocado Toast, the series, and I am also from Toronto. So thanks for having us.
Hi, I'm Nicole, Pacent. I was asked her on Anyone But Me. I also have a podcast called Coming Out with Lauren and Nicole. I have a YouTube channel. I'm on the things. I'm Nicole Pacent.
Nailed it.
Hi guys, I'm Mandala Rose. I play E in All About E, if you haven't seen it. We have a panel tomorrow and I'll be selling DVDs.
Hi, I'm Christin Baker. I'm the president and CEO of TelloFilms.com. We distribute and produce content for the LGBTQ women queer community.
Wicked. Marvelous. All right, so Heidi and Perrie, you have organised this panel, so we would like you to start by telling us why you wanted to have this discussion with these humans.
Share my mic if you want. Here.
Oh, great.
Can you hold that back up there?
Oh, thanks, babe.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I am personally pretty obsessed with Brené Brown and her discoveries on vulnerability and its relationship to shame, and how talking about vulnerable issues, although it's really challenging, is just good for the good of humanity and good for everyone, and makes us not feel alone and helps us all heal. And Perrie and I wrote Avocado Toast based on our true life experiences. We met at a really intense time for both of us, and we were going through pretty personal things. And we found such a relief in this friendship and the ability to make each other laugh throughout everything. And do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, that's all very true. I haven't been great. Like I'm an actor, but I'm not great at sharing my own stuff. But what I was finding is, like, as I was growing up, and then I went through this huge thing with my family, that actually sharing it and seeing other people be really honest and show themselves actually made it a lot easier for me to show myself and trust people, which I'm like not great at. Like I'm terrified right now. So yeah, I just feel like having those conversations with other people that have also gone through really crazy experiences, it just makes it a lot easier to open up. And I think creating community is the most important thing in creating change. So.
And then we felt really inspired by Nicole and Mandala and Christin in their work of sharing their own truths and their own vulnerabilities personally, or being a vehicle for other people's stories and doing such a wonderful job at it.
Yeah.
And with Christin literally creating a platform so that other women's stories get to be told and shared.
Yeah.
And what good that does for everyone, for the queer community and everyone at large in general, is very inspiring. So we were super stoked to get to have this conversation with everyone.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to show you the trailer to our show. And just let you know the physiology of being vulnerable. We both sort of feel like we're going to poop our pants.
Oh my gosh. Is that full screen? Oh, here we go.
Oh, I hope you don't mind. I borrowed your vibrator last night.
Like, honestly.
And she's up. Make coffee.
Oh, I will. I have to call your mom really quick, and I have to just, like, let her know that you're a lesbian.
Go ahead. I don't care.
Oh.
Really? Okay. Bye.
I'm going east and you're going west. Catch you if I could for a kiss. That wouldn't be safe, no, that wouldn't be smart. Stand by you faithfully. Come with me, crawl in fire escapes. They may all know your mind, I know your heart.
I like men too. She just makes me feel loved.
Hi, babe. How are you?
I just want you to be happy, whether it's a man or a woman.
Nope, I'm late for work.
Yeah. Made my mom's bogus midlife crisis affair on top of all of that.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
What is the hell? What do you want to do with your life? Oh.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'm like 90% sure I'm a lesbian. Does that say fluid?
I mean, it says camel toe, so. Honey, pick a cleavage.
Want to say anything else, or?
Yeah, so we aired that last March, and it's really interesting to get to come and ClexaCon in pre-production. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jenna. It's really interesting to come. That was so stealth. It was really stealthy.
Understandable.
Open it back up. We've changed
We're
the
game.
panel topic. We've changed the panel topic to what's on the laptop. That's the new panel topic.
We're game. It's the last panel of the day. We can do whatever we want. Yeah, it's really interesting to get to come to ClexaCon while we're still in pre-production. Like, we're still, Annie Briggs has been our story editor off and on and helping us a lot, and we still have opportunities to grow and learn and mold the story that we want to tell, while also being inclusive and getting all these little nuggets from being here. And we had a lunch meeting with Perrie's partner and just had all these great ideas for how we want to infuse the writing a bit more. So thanks for letting us share that with you. Yeah. Back to Faye.
Great, lovely. Now, question time. Question number 1 is for Nicole. Much like Christin with Tello Films, you've created your podcast Coming Out with Lauren and Nicole as part of a platform for story sharing, and they're quite often very vulnerable stories. So the question is, what was your goal when creating the podcast, and how has the experience been different from your own expectations?
Okay, great story. Great.
I'm telling you,
I liked it. No, great question. So I would say, I think I have to, in order to contextualize this, take it back a little bit. Several years. So the power of sharing vulnerable stories started being something that I became conscious of, I would say, during my acting training, because for anybody who's taken any sort of theater training, or really arts training in general, you kind of realize that it's more about unlearning the repression. All of us have to walk around with these walls up, and that's what we're taught from such a young age. And in order to be an artist, you really have to start stripping away, and you start seeing, if you're lucky, in groups of other artists, people getting really vulnerable with one another, and just how when one person opens up, whether it's that they cry or they're about being stressed out, or they share something very personal that they've been holding on to, you can just see the room light up and go oh God, me too, I feel the same way, or I also went through that. And so I feel like back in college when I started realizing wow, this is really powerful stuff. And then fast forward to 3.5 years ago, my sister passed away, and I did not know how else to cope with that except to share it. And I write, and I started making videos for YouTube. And I started sharing how I was feeling on any given day about my sister. I started sharing about mental health awareness because she took her own life. I started talking about these things that are, typical taboo stuff, and like crying on camera as me, not as a character. And the response was incredible to that, because I think everybody is just so desperate, especially online, to see people actually opening up and saying, like, this is not my bright and shiny veneer that I'm putting out for everybody. This is actually what's going on. And so I started seeing the power of that. And then the podcast came about because I got involved at the LGBT Center in LA. And because of a friend of mine, a comedian friend, Lauren, who's my co-host, who also does facilitation there. And she approached me after being a facilitator for the Coming Out workshop, which is it's a private group. We do little, I don't want to say interviews, but intakes of people so that we keep it a safe space. And people come to us at the center, they call us or whatever and say, hey, I'm coming out. And it's people across the gender spectrum and age spectrum. I mean, we have people in that group, like women in their 70s and stuff, people who are just starting to grapple with this. And Lauren facilitates those groups a lot. And the running theme in those groups was we just want to hear other people's stories. Everybody just wanted to hear someone else who'd gone through it and how they'd done it. And I, over time, especially after Anyone But Me, I had so many people messaging me with their own difficulties in coming out, and how do can you give me advice and things like that. And I find it so hard to give advice blanketedly because everybody's situations are so different, and some people are literally in bodily harm if they come out. But Lauren and I thought that, we can't give advice to everybody, but we can share stories, and there is so much that can be gained in sharing stories. So we have on a new guest every week, and they share their story, and we try to be really diverse with our guests across gender spectrums, race spectrums, sexuality, you name it. And so we launched in June, and it's been wildly successful. And so it exceeded our expectations thus far that way. And also, I gotta say, I've been pleased to hear how many positive experiences there have been, too, and how many overlaps. Oh my God, the number of things that come up where it's just we're like, yep, heard that, how much we all share, and how alone we all felt at one point, even though most of us go through so many of the same feelings. It's been really powerful. Yeah.
Wow. Cool. And you can follow that on Instagram at @ComingOutPod. It's awesome.
And Twitter and all that, yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So this is to everyone on the panel except me. In your creative pursuits, what has been the most vulnerable story you have shared, and what was your biggest fear about sharing this story with your family, friends, or the internet at large?
Mine was definitely what we're talking about in Avocado Toast. And I am really fortunate and really lucky, and have learned from talking to Faye about it too, that I got to be one of the wonderful coming out stories. But I really avoided it for a long time because I was terrified. And when we launched the trailer, I knew I was like, I'm gonna have to call my parents because they're gonna see it on my Facebook. And I did, and I had the most wonderful experience where my mom just monologued about her sexual history for about 25 minutes. This one time when I was 12, I woke up in the middle of the night and we were making out and kind of grinding on each other. And I knew I liked it, but I was like, no, I don't think that's for me. And it just kept coming, and I was just like, oh, wow, this is real. But yeah, the feedback from my family and from the internet at large has created a safe space for me, which has made me want to reach out to everyone else and try to pass that on equally. I don't know if that answered the question, and I wrote it. Go ahead, Perrie.
I think the same for me. The whole reason that we wanted to start writing this show was because we were dealing with things that we didn't know how to cope with, and we were trying to make each other laugh while we were also very sad. My parents got divorced when I was in my early 30s, which is like a crazy thing to deal with at any time. But also
because when you're older, society doesn't really allow you to go through the trauma of it. You they're like, you're an adult, why do you care?
Yeah, we were doing a play and I wasn't allowed to like miss rehearsals to go cry. Like I had to like suck it up, which was not easy for me. So deciding to write that story and then having to then share it with my dad.
And like her parents donated to our Indiegogo campaign. It was great.
Very
it was a healing
supportive,
circle.
but I'm like, you realize that I'm telling the story of the affair. So that's kind of terrifying. But also they are happy that I'm finding a way to express myself, I guess. It's still a very strange thing for me to talk about, to be very honest. But because I come from a lot of like support and comedy is how I deal with a lot of stuff, we're trying to tell that through a way that we're finding to be able to communicate through comedy. So that's how we're coping with that. And that's been the most terrifying thing, I think. Yeah. Other people?
Would you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Yes, I shall. So it's what, in your creative pursuits, what has been the most vulnerable story you have shared? And what was your biggest fear about sharing this particular story with your family and friends or the internet at large?
Well, I think I'm always afraid of like what my mom's gonna think of stuff. I mean, like I'm 43, so I'm like super fucking old. And I don't know if you're over 40, I don't really care, but like I feel old sometimes. But no matter what I do, I always think, like, what's my mom gonna think? And my mom is really fucking conservative. Like, she has like no stories about when I did this at 12. Like, there's none of that happening. It's like a super Catholic, like, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I didn't have sex before marriage. It was like, she married my dad, and I should say, I love my parents very, very much. They're fantastic. But their world and my world could not be more different. So I think I always look through the lens of, could my mom watch this and like not turn red? And there are very few things that my mom can watch that have like a lesbian kiss in it and not turn red. And so I think the very first project that I ever wrote and did was with Nicole and Shannon Lee Reeve, I Hate Tommy Finch. And if you watch that, there's so many, all the people that collaborated, including Nicole, because I think age 15, the Playboy thing was your story.
Yeah, well, the character was 15, I was 8.
Right. Okay,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
When that happened.
But that was me. Yeah,
that was my story.
So Nicole just tells it. We were writing it, and like there's so many things in I Hate Tommy Finch that were part of like my growing up and like not realizing I was a lesbian when I was at different ages. And when we were in rehearsal, Nicole, you told a story about looking at Playboy with your friend. She was 8. We made them 15. And like having a different reaction, like having like what is this? Where the friend was like, hee, boobies, and you were like, boobies.
Yeah,
yeah.
I had my fascination went above and beyond anatomy.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So we ended up like having this like really cool like amalgamation of like all of these coming out stories. But I will say this, and I can talk about it more. But I've been running Tello for like 11 years. And when I first ran Tello, it was like more open source, so we had ads. So when you put ads on Google for LGBT stuff, you get some really interesting ads that pop up that you don't have any control over. And so I remember when I was first starting Tello, my mom went to view it, and I think there was like probably like a dildo ad and like itty bitty titty committee with someone flipping off the camera. And I think she probably clicked in and watched like sex scenes of the L Word compilation video that was on there. And like she just called me and she was like, "You're running a porn site." And I had an argument with her about how it's not, and this is what I'm doing. And we just got to a point where I said to her, I'm not going to have this, so why don't we just never talk about it? We will never talk about it. I will never tell my extended family about this. I'll never mention it to anyone. It will just be this thing that I do that I'm super fucking passionate about, that I won't talk to. It was like this whole, it was like having an entire piece of you not being shared with your parent. And that's how it was for a good 6 years. it was just a topic we did not talk about. I didn't share anything, and it wasn't until I remember I was doing a project that had some really cool people in it called Nikki and Nora, and I ended up sharing it with some like close cousins, like a handful of close cousins of mine, and they had looked and they were like, "You've been doing this for 5 years and you have all this content. Why is this something that you've never shared with us?" And some of them were like very kindly like angry with me, in like a loving way, right? Like, how dare you not share this part of you? And then it wasn't until we got an Emmy nomination that my mom was like, maybe I should take a look at, see what you're doing now. And so I say that to say, it was, and again, like, I'm really close to my parents and I love them very much, but I wasn't going to stop what I was doing and who I was serving and the stories that I was telling, no matter how vulnerable or not vulnerable they were for me personally, because my parents disapproved of it, actively disapproved. And I was very lucky to know that they wouldn't stop loving me. I know there's probably a lot of people who get kicked out of their homes and like have a lot of very traumatic things that happen when you come out or there's an unsafe environment. So the good thing was I knew it was a safe environment where I could do this thing and my mom wouldn't not love me. But it was also this really sad piece that, and I don't actually think, and she'll now say like, oh, I should watch this thing that you've done. She still hasn't seen anything that's on Tello, like ever. But I was just sort of like, this is the thing that I have to do, and I'm going to do it no matter what. So, and you can accept me or not, but that's what I'm going to do. So that's a vulnerable story that I'm telling, because I don't know that I've ever told that publicly. But all that to say, like,
thanks for doing it.
Yeah. So there was a vulnerable story. How about that? Yeah. But I think in everything that I've written, there's always a piece of something that you have. Like, that's the interesting stuff. Like, the vulnerable pieces where you expose that like underbelly side of you is what's interesting, and you can find. Like, I could go into almost everything that I've produced on Tello and been like. That I've co-written, where I'm like, that happened to me, or this is a piece that happened to me, or that's a piece that happened to me, because that's the interesting stuff that makes us human and that gives us depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
You or me.
It's how we connect.
Either way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm shit scared of saying this, and but let's say it. So 2015, I hung myself, and I'm here, which is cool. And that was terrifying to even now to say. But in Las Vegas, I mentioned it as well in the LGBTQ actress panel. I said that I actually did hang myself, and I have the scar to prove it. And that it's scary to say. And I guess saying that out loud at the time was really scary, but I'm grateful for it, because I believe that telling a story like that can save lives, and I did. Your turn, and then I'll come back to that later.
Yep. Let me have some more beer. Yeah, great. Yeah, I'll tell part of that story, and then send it back to you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would say there are two things that come to mind immediately, but the first of which is definitely sharing about my sister. After that happened, I mean, I waited a couple weeks until because I was like, I'm not ready I can't talk to anybody, basically, even people that I know, I can't talk to anybody, and much less be public about what has just happened. But I felt that I needed to say it, and not just say my sister passed away, and not just, brush it under the rug. I needed to be explicit about what happened, because we have such a stigma around mental health and around suicide, and we need to be talking about it. So that has been, it's been very difficult, because with my coming out, that was something that I didn't choose to be bi, but I chose to come out as a celebratory thing, but there is nothing particularly celebratory about saying that your sister committed suicide. And I have found that it's been freeing for me to discuss it, but also I've had so many people contact me and say, you know, like, I see how upset you are about your sister, and so I want to live another day because I don't want to do that to the people that love me. And you've changed my perspective on it or whatever. And that is just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Literally, storytelling that way is life-saving. And at the LGBTQ actresses panel that Mandala was just talking about in Vegas, one of the audience members during the Q&A asked about our thoughts on mental health or our experience with mental health. And I told my sister's story, and Mandala and I had just met, like literally in the holding area before the LGBTQ actresses panel. And she was sitting next to me, and like I immediately started crying, talking about Kim. And Mandala just grabbed my hand, and I told my story, and then it went to her, and she told her story. And these two people who'd never met before in this room shared this crazy experience, and now we've become very close as a result. And I have to say that, our connection has really helped me in feeling like someone understands, So even if it was literally just the relationship that I have with Mandala that came out of that, it was worth it for me, but it became so much more than that by sharing it.
Yeah. There's a girl called Tessa, and her name's Tessa Lynne. She had been called Tessa Lynne. 18 years old, born April 5th, 2000. And Friday morning, she actually hung herself. This was the day of our LGBTQ panel, but at ClexaCon. But the shower curtain broke, and she decided that she would come to our panel instead. And she heard us speak, and as a result of me saying that I, had hung myself, but, came to and cut the rope, and my brother also hung himself, and my mother, drug overdose as well. She ended up calling her sister and her friends and ended up going to rehab and met a girl there and married her, moved to Paris, ended up loving her life. And on Monday, just past, she died. Not by her own hand, but she actually had a heart defect and went into cardiac arrest and died. I got a tattoo for her.
Oh, wow.
Hang on. Let me have some beer.
Yeah, have a drink. There you go. There's some more.
You're amazing. Let me do another pour for you.
There you go. Pour it out.
And the thing about that is that I've never met Tess, and she actually had tickets to come to ClexaCon this year in London, and she was going to come up to me and give me a big hug, it was wonderful because her mum, or rather her sister, best friends with someone, ended up just twittering me and telling me Tessa's story and was like, I'm so sorry if this is overwhelming to you. And I'm like, fuck no, like, tell me, I want to know what happened. And she told me how it led up to, and I've been following Tessa's story since April. So to hear that she passed away. But the thing that I find incredible about that is that she was going to die anyway, whether it was by her own hand, full of darkness and pain, or the fact that I was able to share my story and actually help her live her life, and she ended up having light and love. So the moral of this story is it's really important to tell your story. Yeah.
Alrighty. I
feel like Nicole and Mandela just answered the next question
They
really
did. I was
more
just looking
beautifully
at it.
than anyone could have ever imagined.
And you don't want my northern accent asking the question and
I mean, your accent's wonderful.
Well, I was still going to ask it then, but fucking hell, wow. Like, thank you for saying that to everyone, because that's fucking, yeah. Okay, so what has been the most meaningful feedback you've gotten from sharing your work?
Perrie and I got a solid amount of response from that camel toe line. So Perrie came up with that zinger. Pick a cleavage. Pick a cleavage. Think about it. That was really, really nice. Some really like beautiful ally messaging came from a random man in Iceland or Norway. Sweden. He gave us $1,000 for our Indiegogo campaign. And then I emailed him and I was like, hi, do you know any of us? Like, do you know Faye? He was like, no, I just think women are so much funnier than men. And I want to see you get your show made. Beautiful ally moment. That meant a lot. And then just a whole slew of wonderful people writing us to give us advice or pointers or ideas for the show and saying, like, this is my story. This is exactly my story. Which is interesting because we have two characters having storylines at the same time. And with the parental divorce situation, they call it gray divorce, when the baby boomers get divorced later in life because their kids have moved out, and so they get to have their second life. There is this sort of societal belief that that's not a huge source of sadness for people because they're already grown up. But I feel like isolating people and making them feel like their problems aren't a problem can be really dangerous and create a lot of anxiety and depression. And you know, it's not easy. So that was really cool because that story doesn't get told too much because there's some sort of perception that there's not so much to mine within it. But we think that there is, so we're going to try our best.
We're going to tell it. Yeah. No, I think that's exactly it. Like, just people from all over the world, I think, you know, once they see someone sharing something that's close to them, that's what they're relating to. So whether it's your story or not, I think once people see your heart, that's what they want. That's what they want to share, and that's what they're relating to. So that was the feedback that we were getting, and that was more than we ever imagined.
Yeah, it just
even
made
right
us to
out of
want
the
to
gate.
keep working on the show. Like it was our little thing in a bedroom, and we got shortlisted for one award, and then we were like, oh, now we have to share it with people. But that's proven to be the most wonderful part of it all.
Yeah.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christin?
Most of the time, people just get mad at us because we took their money and something happened that was wrong. So we don't actually. Platforms aren't. We're not people. We're not. I mean, like I am. Like I get all those, but it's really funny how there's like a disconnect between. So it's like if we put something out, like Mandala will get a lot of response, and Nicole will get a lot of response, and like you guys will get a lot of response. But like we just get people pissed off at us for stuff. We'll get a few folks that are like, oh, thanks for what you do, but like really they're sort of like, I have my money and I can't watch your thing, and or like I have a problem, and so like yeah. Platforms are not like. They don't
like,
see them as
thank you for
people.
sharing?
No. We just mostly get like people who are mad. Like I will get that like every now and then. Like people like, oh, thank you so much for blah blah blah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, but it's more. You know, I think it's sort of like AT&T. Or, you know, like no one's like AT&T. You're the best. Like I made a phone call today and thank you. Like you know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of assumption around like you're a corporation and. Yeah. I mean, to one extent we are, but we're not because I get all the things. But so we don't get. It's really most of the time when you're talking about vulnerable stories and someone has all the feels, they put it on the actors.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even so, like you guys are the face of Avocado Toast, and you're also the creators around it, but you're the face of it. So it's like Nicole is the face, and Mandala are the face of the things that we do. So they will get all the perceptions are placed upon them. Like no one writes the CW and goes DC Legends of Tomorrow and the two actresses like thank you so much for that. Like they'll tell the actresses. Right. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm not complaining at all. I understand that thing. So like we just get like the people who are mad about whatever. Right. Nice. It doesn't stop us from making it, but for sure. but because it's personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and it's like, oh, you made me feel this, Mandala. you made me feel this, Nicole. You made me feel this, Faye. Not HBO. HBO didn't make you feel anything. Faye made you feel it, right? I mean, that's kind of like YouTube did make you feel. Avocado Toast did. YouTube is just the conduit by which you see the things.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of perception. So every now and then it will happen, but it's mostly like they get to you guys, which is fine. That's why I'm behind the camera and you're in front of the camera. So
I think in terms of we're going back to response, right? So looping back around to my podcast and actually the past several years, I made a very conscious choice. This was very vulnerable for a while. I made a very conscious choice not to to make it so that if I was being interviewed or anybody was writing about me in the context of whatever show I was doing at that point, that they absolutely had to use the word bisexual. They could not use any catch-all, any like gay or whatever, because for a while I was like, yeah, you can call me gay, it's fine, like I don't really care. And like there's part of me that didn't. And then I started feeling, well, really what happened is that a now defunct lesbian site who I had who was great for a while, but who I'd interviewed with before, a writer who was working with them who had not worked with me, contacted me about doing it was like 30 under 30, or it was like one of those kind of like 30 lesbians under 30 or something. And
when you were young.
When I was under 30. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be in that kind of area.
I just told everyone my age, so screw you.
It's fine. I'm not hiding it. No, but like she'd contacted me about this thing and was like, hey, I need a photo from you and maybe just a brief write-up or whatever. And I was like, cool, great. And I just said, and if you would, I don't care where it is, just somewhere in passing, just mention that I'm bisexual. And she wrote me back and goes, ooh, yeah, no, this is just for lesbians, so I can't really use you in this.
Screw you.
And I was like, cool. And that was, you know what though? Like, I'm glad that happened because it really lit a fire. Yeah. Like from then on, I was like, oh hell no, and I got real outspoken about being bisexual and kind of all of these sort of erasure things that had been happening for so long with me came to the forefront, and also having to like reckon with my own fear around not being accepted into the queer female community because I was bi. All of that came up, and I had to start dealing with that and just push forward. And what's been great is that, like bi Twitter is a thing. And the number of times now that since I've been like making videos about being bi and talking about being bi on the podcast, bi Twitter and bi internet has just come out of the woodwork. And people like constantly are messaging me and like, thank you so much. And I've been married to a man for 9 years, but I'm bi and I feel like I get erased and I don't know what to do. And, so like that was very scary at first, but has been extremely rewarding. So yeah.
Cool.
Wow, yeah, that's awesome.
I feel the same way. I want to say thank you to Nicole.
All right, we're going to do one more question, and then we're going to do a Q&A. So, yeah, we are. Are we?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Okay, great. Yeah. So this question is about humour, and the question is, how do you explore comedy in your work? Do you think comedy is an important vehicle for a vulnerable story? And if you do, why? Anybody?
We'll go first.
Yeah. We'll talk.
We wrote the questions, so we probably have answers prepared.
You might know.
That's kind of the fair thing.
Yeah, I know.
Is it?
We'll start it.
Perrie and I don't really have a choice because we're really ridiculous human beings. We don't really function in a way unless we're making fun of each other or laughing at whatever's going on in our lives that are terrible.
I have like no chill factor whatsoever.
No, we're not cool people. We've never been able to be cool. We have a lot of cool friends.
Oh my God, so many
who
cool
make
friends.
really cool shows.
No, seriously, she's so cool.
She's pretty cool. It's the accent and the hat. No, she just says fuck so much.
Yeah, it's the hat.
Cool.
It's the hat.
She's bad.
It's super hard.
It's the northern accent.
It is the northern accent.
It is.
No, but we do ridiculous things all the time, but then we're sad, so the ridiculousness is like I'm still here, and I think there's just no way of telling our story without having a little bit of humor behind it. And I think for an audience, I think it makes it even more accessible. In a way.
It can make things palatable, and I mean, like, I have a long fangirl relationship with Tig Notaro, very long, where I've seen her in LA do comedy, and I always end up having some strange genuine reaction to something she said, and she will single me out in the audience and then pick on me. And I've been obsessed with her for a long time, and her show One Mississippi just floored me, because it was the most naked, bare, beautiful, honest, vulnerable things she could be sharing, and so funny, and like the depths of despair, but you're laughing and you're guilty about laughing, but she's laughing and she needs to laugh at herself. And the relationship how she told her true relationship, and her wife is in the show with her, taught me so much about the other side of a relationship when someone who's been with women forever falls in love with a straight woman, and you see it from both sides and how people were hurt. And I just learned so much from that show that I felt like comedy was the vehicle that I wanted to write in and I need to be a part of, and just what was appropriate for the story that I wanted to tell, and stories that I want to tell.
Mm-hmm. And I just grew up with a very waspy background, so we didn't talk about anything. So the way that we did talk about stuff was always through a bit of like sardonic humor, or like dry wit, or like just straight up aggressive humor. So yeah, like it was like humor was okay, but emotions were not, as long as the emotions were right here under the humor. So I think that has a lot of kind of influence. Yeah, and I think it works.
Yeah, oh, totally. I like, it's funny because I've had some people say to me recently, like, who've seen me do comedy, they're like, oh, I didn't know you did comedy. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I been doing that no one knows I do comedy? But I love doing comedy. And I totally agree that comedy is like, God, it's amazing. And being able to communicate, especially through dark humor. Like, even following my sister's passing, like I started going to this grief support group that I've been very involved with since. And just for my own sort of sick humor, I just started calling it like sad group. I'd be like, I'm going to sad group, like just like doing silly shit. And my sister also was hilarious, which a lot of people who honestly suffer from mental illness have that side of them, where they're just goofy and funny as hell and can laugh at themselves. It's why a lot of comedians, there's a lot of like crossover with mental illness and comedy for a reason. But I find it's an amazing vehicle. And when Lauren and I conceived of the podcast, Lauren is a comedian. She's hysterical and so quick-witted. And it's such a joy working with her because, talking about LGBTQ issues, or really just like any politicized issues at all right now, can just feel really heavy-handed and really like self-righteous and preachy. And we were like, let's please not go into those depths. Like, we can still be respectful in the way that we talk and inclusive without having to like hammer home. We were like looking up some other podcasts that had LGBTQ stuff that had these like long paragraphs of like terms and things, and we were like, oh my God, this is like people are going to be so turned off if we do something like that. And the humor has been a necessary component of our storytelling podcast. And not all the stories are funny, but there are ways of bringing humor into the conversation all the time, and some of them are laugh out loud hysterical. So I just think like, life is so ridiculous in so many ways, and if we can't laugh at ourselves and all of the crazy shit that happens, then like,
No, it's so true.
I mean, yeah.
Humor doesn't do well on Tello.
No?
It doesn't.
No?
Really? Yeah. No. It does well on YouTube. It does well on the free stuff. But lesbians love a good slow burn romance drama.
That is true.
Taking a mental note now.
That has pops of comedy. But the things that do the best long-term on Tello are never the comedies. It's never the stand-up. It's never the short-form comedies. It's always the slow burn romance, sci-fi, crime-solving, lesbian. That's what, and I think humor's fine, but it's not my chosen medium. And I don't think I'm not funny, but it's just not my chosen medium of like how I want to tell stories. So if I'm going to write something, it's more likely going to be a drama with funny moments.
Right.
And so I think, yeah, part of that, why do you laugh at that? Is that funny? Look, I was funny. Anyway, yeah, so it doesn't do well on Tello. We have comedies on Tello. I mean, don't think we don't have comedies. We absolutely do. And I've directed them and I've written them, but I think I prefer that like a crime-solving sci-fi kind of thing. Cool. So, and I have limited time to do shit. So, I don't think I write funny. Right. I think some people can. I don't think I do. Right. And it's not some of our most watched stuff. So, at the end of the day, I'm gonna. Good to know. Yeah. I mean, we still want Avocado Toast, but
I mean, we're still like a drama with comedy. Like we're telling a real heart story, but like we're ridiculous, and that's how. So
I saw you dancing around in those funny costumes.
It was great.
I really don't even. Yeah. But yeah, so I think
that's how we dance.
I think it depends on the story that you want to tell and what your sense of humor is.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually never been in comedy at all. You give me a dark serial killer and I'm there. Like, I love the dark, I love the serious. But the last 2 projects I've done have actually been physical comedy. And the funny thing about that is
what?
Yeah.
What?
Diana was she was tripping over bags.
I was tripping all over.
That's actually true. That was something I directed, so that's why I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Diana and then Biffle. I mean, but the characters themselves are physical comedy, and I felt like as an actor, we happen to question our abilities a lot. As, am I in the right career? Am I doing the right thing? Did I move all the way to America for the right reasons? Like, am I doing okay? And the thing is that because I'm so used to serious, I'm used to drama. I like that. And having these last 2 characters that are physical comedy, I would walk away and be like, holy shit, I'm shit at my job. I
didn't make you feel that way.
No, not you at all.
I directed one of them. That's why I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about right now?
Not at all. But it's the fact that it's completely out of my depth. But I found myself in it, and I mean, it was. I look back on it now, and I'm like, it was a lot of fucking fun. Yeah. But I was questioning every single movement I was making, and that wasn't because of you as a director. No, that's just me as my ability.
Yeah, I've been with Mandela on the last 3 projects you've done. 3 projects, and she is. I should start up. I worked with Nicole early on. Amazing actress, fucking amazing. I got to work with her again recently at the beginning of October in Richmond, and I worked with Mandela on a project called Allison Is It and Passage, and then most recently on Biffle. I didn't direct Biffle, but she was on it. And Mandela plays 3 completely different characters in each of those 3 projects. Completely different. And every time she showed up on set, it was like, oh shit, yeah, that's Mandela. Like, she was totally different, and you like nailed them every single time, but you had a different physical persona each one, which was just so fun to watch and so interesting. So, well done, yeah. Yeah, Passage is not a comedy, by the way.
No, it's not a comedy. Diana is adorkable.
Yes, she's adorable, yeah.
Right, okay, so cheers for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a Q&A, but I've been asked to ask you, do you have anything you need to plug or add or share before we go to
I feel like I just did.
Yeah, I feel like yeah. But we can.
All right, cool. Well, any questions from any of you guys? There we go, straight away.
Yeah, it's more a comment than a question. It's actually, I was the person who asked that question at ClexaCon.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Full circle. And this is the hoodie that I put on Nicole on that day, by the way.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, ever since I asked that question, it had been in my mind, and I wanted to reach out somehow, because I was floored by the vulnerability in the stories, because that you shared over there at that time. And my family has a big also history with mental health, and people have shared stories about how positive those stories that you guys told have changed their lives as well. And so thank you, and I love you guys for it.
Awesome.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Nice. Anybody else? Everyone's really quiet. Anything at all?
Anything. You can ask. Yeah.
There we go.
Phoebe, sure.
Let's have it.
Phoebe can.
Self-care. Doing the vulnerable stories, sharing vulnerable stories, but not doing it so much that it just makes it worse.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Tips,
Oh.
advice.
Oh, that's such a
My
good.
therapist.
Yeah, you know what? I can definitely speak to that because
in launching into the YouTube channel, my goal was never to be like a YouTuber. I never even promoted my channel that way because I'm an actor, and YouTube is as a medium for other people. But I loved using it as basically an online blog for whoever wanted it and people who were already following me who found it and things like that. And it felt like a good way for me to share. But when I started putting the pressure on myself to deliver every week, because of the nature of the stories that I was sharing, it started to feel very draining. Because I was like, wait, so now I have to like go into the depths of my soul every week. And sometimes I would feel happy and I'd be like, I feel fine this week. And so now do I have to like put something on? Is it okay to be okay? You know, is that like, and maybe it's not as fun to watch if it's not, you know? So that was one of the reasons that I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't want to make this a weekly thing. And why I leave it up there for people to look through as though it's sort of its own complete book in and of itself, if you want to, you know, look at it whenever. But I found it to be very draining to do that on a schedule, for sure. Yeah, so I personally backed away because, again, it wasn't my dream, you know, so it was like I felt like I had that relationship with it where I could take a step back, but yeah.
No, I did sort of the same thing. Like when I was writing, I had to write this scene that takes place with me confronting a parent that had the affair, based specifically on an event that had happened in my life, and I could not write that scene to save my life. And Heidi's like, where's the scene? Where's the scene? And I'm like, not that she's a pusher, but I just like...
She is a pusher.
She's a bit of a pusher. And I'm like, I just cannot write, I can't write the scene. And I would like try and have a couple glasses of wine. I'm like, okay, it's like time to write the scene. And then I finally had to say to her, I need a month. I need time. I can't write. I just can't write for a bit. And she's like, well, just tell me that. But this is all part of my development of like learning to share with people. So I was like, okay, now I'm telling you I need a month. But I had to admit to myself that I couldn't do it.
And it's like that fine line where, like, I mean, what we do is really hard, and wearing so many hats can be really hard. But if you wanted to have a hard fucking life, we should have done something else. Like, this is supposed to be joyful. And if it's not, I feel like that's telling your body maybe you need a break or a pause or do something else for a little bit and come back to it when it does feel good and it does feel right. Because I feel like if you muscle through the work when it's not jiving with you, it's going to affect your content.
Yeah. It's also okay to just like zone out sometimes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like I had a week of playing like incredibly vulnerable scenes in a row, 3 different projects in 1 week. And I was like, I need to just watch Friends, like for just like 6 hours straight now. And that's totally fine to just turn it off.
Yeah.
You know, reset.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Yes.
Velociraptor. I mean, I am wearing my dinosaur shirt.
Yeah.
I'd be a brontosaurus.
I would be a brontosaurus too. Oh my god.
I'm short.
No.
Being tall would be amazing.
I think I'd have to be a T-Rex so that Faye and I could live together.
Yeah, T-Rex.
What? I like T-Rex. I'd be whatever Ducky is in The Land Before Time. That's what I would be.
They're eaten. They get eaten, Nicole.
But they're so cute.
We had a question on the end there. Yeah?
Thank you all very much. It was a really great panel, and thank you for sharing. I guess my question is, you've all been very vulnerable in your stories. What are your thoughts on specifically LGBTQ plus actors or actresses who maybe aren't, and maybe take the benefit of not sharing? And then
Oh.
You mean not being out?
So yeah.
Yeah. Help.
Well, but also the vulnerable stories that they have, you know, maybe not, yeah.
But that they don't share?
Yeah. What do you think really important? We talk about how important it is, but people who don't, what are your thoughts on people who don't share that? And I'd ask that as someone who wouldn't share.
Yeah, no. I think this is actually something that's come up a couple times in the groups at the LGBT Center, because there's the talk about like, is it as an LGBTQ person, especially someone in the spotlight, is it your responsibility to come out and share your story? And this is a whole discussion that could go on for another hour, but
Yeah.
basically,
I mean, we are the last panel, we have time.
no, but basically, where it's netted out, at least for me, and I think in a lot of the discussions I've had, is that yes, in an ideal world, it'd be great if everybody came out, but I think it's nobody's responsibility to share what they don't feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
And every
Yeah.
single person comes from a very different background and very different set of circumstances, familial and otherwise. And so putting that pressure on someone in the public eye or not is, I think, not fair. It has to be voluntary.
Completely. How I find myself incredibly lucky in this industry because I am on a platform where I can and I want to share my story because I know that sharing my story, because I have had not just the loss of my brother and my mum, but also I come from a background where I was beaten as a child and raped as well. And obviously I don't have a problem sharing this since I'm saying it out loud. But the reason why I choose to do it is because I know that I can potentially reach one person. And if I can reach one person and save their lives for even just 6 months, it's still 6 months that I've saved their lives. Or if I can just reach one person and let them know that they're not alone, then I'm happy to share my story. If someone else doesn't want to do that, that's okay, because there are other people out there who can and who might want to. And that doesn't mean that I want to shame anyone or tell someone that they're wrong or incorrect by not sharing their story, because they are still right. If they want to hold that close to themselves, then that's their choice, and I'm not going to judge anyone for that. So as myself, I have the ability and also the freedom to be able to share my story. Someone else, that's their own choice.
I think the danger comes if you lie.
Yeah.
Yes. Then there's a difference in that, right? Like there's a difference in I'm not going to share my story, and there's a difference in I'm going to lie about who or what I am, and I think those are two very different things.
I'm going to pipe in with this, even though I'm the question person. I am an actress in the UK, and I have never openly said to anyone that I'm with a woman, ever. I mean, you guys all now know that I am. But for me, I'm still in that kind of... I grew up in a very working class northern background where we didn't really talk about that kind of shit, do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like it's amazing that we have people like, you know, these guys, Ellen Page, people that are willing to kind of... But I feel for me right now that I think it's no one's business who I'm having sex with. Right now, do you know what I'm saying? And it gets to a point where I feel like I need to come out and say that, then I will. I'm just trying to be like on the other side of the coin, do you know what I'm saying? So like...
Yeah.
I also may I chime in? May I chime in? I'm sorry.
She is obviously my girlfriend, as you can tell. She's
I also feel like people getting to some level of stardom is completely involuntary, and they started out waiting tables, being like, I'm going to be an actor. Who knows what's going to happen? Yeah. So I feel like we don't know. To put some responsibility on them can be tricky because we don't know what they're like in their everyday life. And just because they haven't come out on their Instagram or on Facebook, in their real life, if they were at a party, a cocktail party, and started a conversation with a younger person who was struggling, maybe they do open up and tell their story. And maybe those are the moments where...
I've never lied though. So when I'm at work, if someone asks me like if I'm on set, oh, who you with? I'll be like, oh, my girlfriend Heidi. I'm never like my boyfriend Jim or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? We'll go see Jim.
Jim's a good guy.
Yeah, Jim's alright, but he's not for me. You know what I mean?
No, he's not.
So it's a tricky one. I don't know. For me, I'm quite like working class northern, quiet. I'm really shy as well. So like, fuck off. So anyway, I just wanted to offer that up. I was going to keep my gob shut on this, but I've had a pint, so anyway, crack on.
In saying that as well, I might be really open in part of my stuff, but there is stuff that I will still keep to myself.
For sure.
I will let you know what I want you to know, because I know that it will help certain people. But my personal life, like who I'm dating, who I'm sleeping with, that's my fucking business.
Vidal and I are together.
You're not that old, by the way, Christin. 43 is not old.
And I think maybe just to close this out, you know, here's the other thing is that everybody sitting up here has the benefit, of coming from a time before the internet. There was a time before the internet.
Yeah.
And like having a real, actual memory of what that was. And I think it's important in many areas, and this is very much included, to remember that we don't owe the internet things.
Anything.
You don't owe the internet all your damn pictures from your vacation. You don't owe the internet the details of your personal life. Like, you do not owe anybody that. And yes, I think there is power in storytelling, but like people have to come around to that to whatever extent they are personally comfortable with. Nobody owes that to one another on the internet. And the idea that like, you know, we all have to be out about our relationships now, and that there's like started with, you know, with relationship status on Facebook, and then that became like a freaking, you know, like fighting argument point in relation to, well, we're not official on Facebook. Are you ashamed of me? You know, like, believe me, I've said that before. You know, like, so like I've played into this, but like, but you do at some point have to take a step back and go like, I don't know anybody anything. It's okay. So.
Is there anything else anybody wants? Because I think we should probably wrap it up.
Oh, yeah, we should.
Everyone definitely needs to go to the pub. So.
Yeah.
More burning questions.
Anything else?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.